This is Frost, colder and deadlier than space itself. Frost can protect or punish. The decision is yours to know. And unfortunately I have to start off with some bad news, because at the time of recording, Frost Prime has been moved to the Primed Vault, so he is not available outside of trading with other players. Regular Frost, on the other hand, is still available, and you can get him by defeating Lieutenant Lech Krill in the mission Exta on Ceres. Now, on top of having very good crowd control and both offensive and defensive abilities, Frost is a pretty good tank as well. He has 100 health, which goes up to 300 at rank 30, 150 shields, which go up to 450 at rank 30, and 300 armor, which obviously makes him very beefy. He also has 100 power, which goes up to 150 at rank 30, and he is slower than most other Warframes with sprint speed of only 0.95. And finally, he comes in with 3 polarities, a dash, a D, and an additional D in the aura slot. Frost Prime, aside from being a primed Warframe, so you can use Death Orbs in the Void to restore energy to yourself and your allies, and also cosmetic change, which leaves golden icicles on the ground when you cast Ice Wave, is even beefier. So he has 1 more D polarity, which means he has a dash, 2 Ds, and an additional D in the aura slot, but he also has 175 shields, which go up to 525 at rank 30. This is the highest out of all the Warframes, and with maxed out redirection and vigor, you will have 1505 shields. And when you take into consideration that Frost also has a lot of armor and decent health, yeah, he is a walking bullet sponge. His abilities, as you may expect, are all cold or ice based, and they have everything. They have crowd control, damage, and defensive potential. Now, before I go over the abilities, I think it's appropriate to explain what a cold status effect does, so I don't have to mention it and explain it with every single ability separately. Okay, so a cold status effect will reduce target's movement speed and fire rate by 50% over a duration of 6 seconds. So Frost's first ability is called Freeze, where Frost launches an icy projectile that inflicts 350 cold damage on impact and 150 cold damage with a 100% status chance in a small area. Enemies that are directly hit by the projectile will be frozen over for 15 seconds, and if the projectile impacts a surface, it will create a patch of ice that will slow enemies down. All the damage is affected by power strength and body part multipliers, and both freeze and ice duration are affected by power duration. The freeze duration will end prematurely if the initial target loses 50% of its current health during the time it's frozen, and frozen enemies cannot regenerate shields. And finally, freeze can be recast on a frozen target multiple times, which will reset the freeze duration, and it's also a one-handed ability, so you can use it while reloading. The augment for freeze is called Freeze Force, where casting freeze on allies will add 100% cold damage to their attacks for 40 seconds. The damage bonus is affected by power strength, and you can push it up to 314% with all the power strength mods, Power Drift, and the Arcane Squall Frost Helmet. And the duration is affected by power duration as well. And it works with companions, specters, mind-controlled enemies, shadows, Siren's Mold, Loki's Decoy, Invasion Allies weapons, and even the clones created by Ash's Bladestorm. Now, probably the best thing about this is that the cold damage will fuse with other elemental damage, so if someone is using toxin damage and you use Freeze Force on them, they will deal viral damage instead. And unlike Ember's Fireball, the projectile has to hit the ally in order to give them the buff. And you can get this augment by reaching the rank of General under the Steel Meridian or the rank of Genius under Cephalon Suda, and it will cost you 25,000 standing. Frost's second ability is called Ice Wave, where Frost sends forth a wave of ice shards that inflict 700 cold damage with a 100% status chance to all targets in its area of effect. The wave has an initial width of 3 meters, disperses at a 45-degree angle, and travels over a distance of 20 meters. The damage is affected by power strength, and the angle, the initial width, and the length are all affected by power range, but the angle cannot exceed 60 degrees. You can cast Ice Wave while you're airborne, and the cast animation cannot be interrupted, so while you're casting it, you basically just have knockdown immunity. And finally, the ice wave will follow the terrain, so with multiple levels of terrain, the ice shards can change elevation to damage enemies. Now this does work most of the time, but there are still times where it will simply clip through a hill and it will do bugger all. The augment for Ice Wave is called Ice Wave Impendance, where Ice Wave will leave a frozen trail that will last for 12 seconds and it will act kind of like the cryo floors in the void, slowing the enemies to a point where they might as well just not shoot or move at all. The duration of the frozen trail is affected by power duration, and there is no limit on how many trails can be active at once. It's only limited by the duration of each trail. And to get this augment, you can either reach the rank of General under the Steel Meridian, the rank of Genius under the Cephalon Suda, or the rank of Tempest in the Conclave, because this is one of the few augments that can be used in Conclave. And it will once again cost you 25,000 standing to purchase. Frost's third ability is called Snow Globe, where Frost creates a protective globe of ice with a diameter of 10 meters, base health of 5,000 and additional health that's equal to 500% of Frost's base armor bonuses. Upon activation, the globe is invulnerable for 4 seconds and incoming damage that is absorbed during the invulnerability period is converted into bonus health for the globe. Now, unfortunately, Frost and his allies cannot contribute to the globe's bonus health this way because it only counts enemy damage. So all in all, the globe's health can be buffed by power strength mods, armor mods, and all the damage that it's gonna take in the 4-second invulnerability period. However, if you recast Snow Globe inside of an already existing Snow Globe, it will destroy the previous Snow Globe and it will replace it with a new one that will have combined health from both. And this way you can stack the health of Snow Globe up to a grand total of 1 million health. The invulnerability period is not affected by power duration and the diameter is affected by power range. Now if you pop down a Snow Globe on top of enemies, it will freeze them for 3 seconds and it will violently push them outwards. If these enemies hit an obstacle, they can be dealt as much as 50% of their maximum health as finisher damage. This damage, however, is not affected by power strength. And once the Snow Globe has been formed and an enemy enters the Snow Globe, they will have their attack and movement speed reduced by 67%. And this is once again not affected by power strength. Snow Globe will also block most gunfire, both friendly and hostile, that's coming from the outside, but not from the inside, which makes this an exceptional defensive ability, although we can still block allies from firing into the globe or from firing through the globe. So a poor placement of Snow Globe could be annoying if it wasn't for Freeze, Frost's first ability. If you hit the outside of a Snow Globe with Freeze, it will cause it to explode, dealing 150 cold damage in an area of effect. The damage of the explosion is affected by power strength and the damage does not diminish with distance and bypasses obstacles in the environment. Affected enemies are ragdolled by the explosion and Freeze is capable of destroying a globe even during its 4-second invulnerability period. Now, even though Snow Globe is amazing, it is not perfect. It will block most attacks, but it will not block AoE attacks. So if you have, for instance, bombards firing at the outside of the globe, the AoE damage will still splash through the globe, as well as the knockdown that follows the bombard rocket explosion. It will also not block railgun MOA projectiles, even though it blocks attacks with punch through. And it will also not block targeted attacks like Necrosis Soul Punch. And finally, you can only have 4 Snow Globes active at a time, and if you attempt to cast a 5th one, the first one will be removed. The augment for Snow Globe is called Chilling Globe, where enemies that enter the Snow Globe will have a 50% chance to become frozen solid for 8 seconds. The freeze chance is not affected by power strength, but the duration of the freeze is affected by power duration. And the enemies only have a chance to be frozen upon crossing the Snow Globe's perimeter. If they go in and they don't freeze, they have to leave the Snow Globe and re-enter to have another chance of freezing. And you can get this augment by reaching the rank of General under the Steel Meridian or the rank of Genius under Cephalon Suda, and it will cost you 25,000 standing. And Frost's fourth and final ability is called Avalanche, and this is a 2-stage ability. So the first stage is where Frost summons an avalanche that freezes enemies over for a duration of 8 seconds within a radius of 15 meters. And the enemies that are frozen have their armor reduced by 40% for the duration of the freeze. The armor reduction is affected by power strength and it cannot stack multiple times, so an enemy can only have their armor reduced once. The The duration is affected by power duration, and the freeze radius is affected by power range. The second stage of the ability comes once the avalanche completely encompasses the area of effect after a short delay, and it will deal 1500 cold damage to all frozen enemies. Frozen enemies will shatter violently upon death and will inflict 400 cold damage with a 100% status chance within 4.5 meters. All the damage is once again affected by power strength, but it does diminish with distance and bypasses obstacles in the environment, and the explosion radius is affected by power range. Now Avalanche also interacts with Frost's first ability, Freeze, because if you cast a freeze on a target that's frozen by Avalanche, it will extend the armor reduction and the freeze duration. The effects, however, will expire when freeze ends or when the health threshold for freeze has been reached. And finally, you cannot cast Avalanche while you're airborne. Now, there is no doubt that Frost is simply the best Warframe for any kind of defense. If you have to defend something, you should have a snow globe on it. It's as simple as that. But that's not everything that Frost is. He can serve as a buffer frame, he has a ton of crowd control, really good crowd control as well, and he can also do a lot of damage in a huge area. The build variety with Frost is simply amazing. You can build him as a buffer frame, or a crowd control frame, or a defensive frame, or a damage frame. I mean, on Draco, I've seen all of these. I've seen people running around with huge ice waves, or just running around and plopping snow globes on the different capture points. Or even just standing in the middle of Draco and spamming avalanches for ludicrous amounts of damage. Or even standing next to a Radial Javelin Excalibur and buffing him up. And while I generally tend to gravitate towards the Snow Globe build, which is a very defensive build, everything is possible with Frost. You can do all the things. And that's amazing. So please, for the love of God, go and get Frost. You will not regret it. I can guarantee that. Alright? And that's pretty much it for the video. So I thank you very much for watching, as always. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.